going to the core of it, what caused the tension between these two countries, we can speculate, but just let me throw some things like, I mean, okay, just departing from that strained historical background or historical reality, they have been able to establish a bilateral relationship, have embassies, and they have been working on certain things together. But that distrust still is deep-seated in ANC. I mean, it's not something to be forgotten, of course. It's just a recent memory. Now, we have seen, of course, during the Ukraine-Russia war, a number of African countries have abstained, and South Africa was one of it. And also, South Africa also led the peace process or the peace deal of Ethiopia, really refusing for any other intervention, and then being the strong promoter of African solution to African problems. There's a military drill between South Africa, China, and Russia. There are other things that added. There's BRICS, and then there's also Putin, you know, that warrant to arrest him and him coming in August. You know, South Africa, and also having a minister like the foreign relation minister, a Pan-African woman, really strong of Miss Padora, correct me her name, I apologize. But
yeah, Madam Naleda Pandor,
yeah, very outspoken and apologetic, who told Secretary Blinken in his face, as that time has passed, you cannot choose friends who we are going to be befriended with. So we have seen some of the things that might have led. Now, putting this on the face, you know, that accusing South Africa on allegedly supplying arms to Russia, is that really the real cause of this tension?
You know, thank you that you have actually mentioned some of these. You have mentioned some of these issues, but let us see the response. Actually, there's a background. In the background, there's what went on that after the ambassador of the United States, Ambassador Bridget, mentioning and making these comments about how South Africa supplied Russia with weapons, he was summoned, you know, to the Ministry of Foreign Relations to explain his comments, because he had he put up even a press conference in South Africa. That is when he made these comments, and I think personally that the South African Ministry of Foreign Relations needs to rein in actually a little bit more. It needs to up its game when it comes to supervision of such subversive elements within the country. That an ambassador like him, he has no right, you know, to summon to do a press conference in the country and make such comments without the knowledge, without the knowledge, you know, of the government. We remember that the United States in the past has done such things as this, what it has done right now, whereby it issued a statement claiming that there's going to be terrorist attacks in South Africa. That was last year. I think it was around October or November, around that period, which South Africa's government was not very happy with. And South Africa has looked at this, has continued to look at this as some sort of undermining the ANC. And so it is in a very difficult position. South Africa itself is in a very difficult, you know, situation right now, is in a difficult position that it is playing you know, a very difficult game right now. On one side, South Africa wants to maintain a neutral position on the Russia-Ukraine issue. and which, you know, it would not have maintained. It would have been on the Russian side, but it has decided to maintain a neutral position. It wants to also represent the African continent on one side, and that is why you see that the President Cyril Ramaphosa was invited to Washington before the US-Africa Summit last year, because South Africa was being looked at as, even right up to right now, is looked at as a leader. As you know, is one of the biggest economies. We have the biggest economy, Nigeria, the second biggest economy, South Africa, the third biggest economy, Egypt. So it is one of the leaders of the economy of the African continent in many aspects. So that is one position. So South Africa is trying to play its leadership role of the continent. As we have seen, Nigeria is not really playing, when it comes to international relations, Nigeria is not really playing a significant, you know, role, a leadership role, which is supposed to represent the whole African continent. It's sort of like it has been subjugated completely. Nigeria has been completely subjugated, that it cannot say anything. The leaders, you know, are so out of touch. So South Africa is trying to play that important, you know, Pan-African role, leadership role on the African continent. On the other side, we have South Africa is part of the BRICS. That is another issue that we are seeing. So South Africa being part of BRICS, and in June is going to host the BRICS summit, is also another issue. It mandates it to behave as a member of BRICS. And the United States, on the other side, is increasingly seeing BRICS as a threat to its dominance. As you remember, they have spoken about the establishment of the currency, the BRICS currency. So the United States is trying all it can to undermine the arrangements of this meeting, because the issue, the currency issue of the displacement of the dollar, as BRICS, we have mentioned numerous times that BRICS is trying to establish its own BRICS currency. So it means that if this currency is, you know, is established, and many countries have asked it to join BRICS, Egypt, you know, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Iran, many countries have asked it to join BRICS. So if this currency is established, that means this could be the end of the dollar. I'm not saying it is, but it could be. So this is what the United States is seeing. And it thinks that it is important to interrupt and disrupt this meeting. So these that we are seeing right now, they are geared, these are tactics geared towards the interruption, the disruption of that meeting, to scare South Africa, to see, it is trying actually its hand to see if South Africa will be able to give in to the threat. It is carrying out a threat. This is what we are seeing. And you know, also on the other side, the fact that they have mentioned that BRICS, during the BRICS summit that is going to happen, President Putin will be in South Africa. They have mentioned that they will protect President Putin, and they will not cave into the demands of the International Criminal Court. You know, President Cyril Ramaphosa came out and mentioned it himself, that they will pull out of the ICC. He has contacted these people so that they can start arrangements of coming out of the ICC. So this was a message to the imperialists, the United States and Europe, that they are not going to arrest Putin. This was a clear message. That is what he was trying to mean. I don't think President Cyril Ramaphosa was trying to mean that they are going to pull out of the ICC completely. What he was trying to communicate to them is that we are not going to arrest President Putin, and he's going to come here for the summit. It was just a clear message, but it was a veiled message. So they are trying to test, the United States and its allies, they are trying to test that resolve. They are trying to test the resolve of the ANC to see if it will follow up on those statements which it made. And so that is what we are seeing, that they are trying to threaten and cause that chaos. Like I said, last year, they put out a statement, the United States Embassy in South Africa put out a statement to claim that there's going to be a terrorist attack in South Africa. which was an undermining, which was an undermining statement to the government in South Africa. And South Africa did not take it lightly. So it is continuing in that, tradition of bullying to see if it will be able to achieve its objective. So typically, it is bullying, the normal bullying of the United States. But on the other hand, also, we see that the United States, because of the way it is losing power, it has become paranoid, it has become desperate. So this shows on one hand that it is very desperate. There's fear of the BRICS as an organization. The fear of the BRICS currency is what is causing this desperation. That a man, a grown man, a full-grown man came out and said in front of the media that he's willing to put his life on his statements, which he made. This is what the man said, that he is willing to put his life, or all his life, on the statements which he's making, that the ship.
Can you elaborate on that, Kwame? Sorry.
Yes, I'm saying that the ambassador, Bridget, came out to mention that he is willing to put his life. He said he was willing to put his life on his assertions, that which he made, that a Russian ship which docked in South Africa, or at the South African port, took weapons. He said that he's willing to put his life on it. But this is a scenario which, of course, we have seen on numerous times, that this is the United States politicians, they don't have this integrity. If you look at what happened with Iraq, of course, and Afghanistan, that they came and said, people like Colin Powell, who came to the United Nations and mentioned that there is weapons of mass destruction. He came with pictures, and they said they have taken satellite pictures. You see, that there's weapons of mass destruction, and this is what led to the war. So when Ambassador Bridget mentions, or says things like this, that he's willing to put his life on his statements, it does not surprise us, because they have done this in the past during the the Iraq war, the build up to the Iraq war, that they even came to the United Nations with papers and pictures and said they are satellite pictures. They said these are the trucks which Saddam is using now. They are using mobile equipment to mix the chemicals which are making the weapons of mass destruction. And it was not true. So they do not have integrity within them. And these are the things which we are seeing that is driving, these are the things which are driving the United States, in its steps that it is taking. The fear of the BRICS currency, the fact that Putin is going to be in South Africa, and of course the summit has come. Is a few weeks remaining before the summit will come on. So they are trying to test South Africa's resolve when it comes to hosting this summit. And of course, they are paranoid, very paranoid, and they are very terrified, and they are very desperate. They are very desperate. That is why you see that they are continuing to push in the direction that is even if it doesn't make sense, they feel that they are supposed to push it. Even if the people have realized that the United States is desperate, he doesn't have the right to do whatever it is doing, to say whatever it is saying, because you cannot claim that Ambassador Bridget said these things on his own. He definitely received the orders from Washington to make these statements, because these statements are not founded. They are not rooted in any investigation. And even though these statements were rooted in any investigation, he has no right, the United States has no right to act as the supervisor across the globe, because the only document that we are supposed to follow as the nations of the world is the United Nations Charter. And the United Nations Charter does not mention anywhere that the United States shall supervise everyone across the globe in their relations with other nations, or in their trade relations, in their assistance. the United Nations Charter doesn't mention anything like that. So it tells you that he was receiving orders from Washington. Clearly, it shows you that he was receiving these orders, from Washington, because an individual like him cannot just wake up and come and make, those assertions and make those statements, before the whole world.
Thank you, Kwame, again.